Skyrim. When it comes to Skyrim, there is always one issue for me, and that's the combat. The combat of Skyrim has not aged very well.
The only mistake was you showing your face. That's something I'm supposed to deliver. Never should have come.
So what if I told you there is a single solution to that? That is uninstalling the game. Alright, I'm joking. I'm talking about a single mod. That's right, you heard me right. A single mod that is going to fix the whole combat and all of the issues it has. And I'm gonna talk in depth, showcase, review and share my points when it comes to the best combat mod for Skyrim, and that's Blade and Blunt. Skyrim's combat is a little bit stat based and it feels like you don't have any reaction time at all, while at the same time not alienating. Skyrim Blade and Blood is going to focus into improving every single combat mechanic in Skyrim, while at the same time keeping it the same old lady that we know and love. Throw a like, subscribe to the video, and let's begin. Blade and Blood does not add new mechanics, however it grabs the vanilla mechanics that exist and enhances them in a way where they feel so much more modern when it comes to Skyrim. Let's begin with stamina. Everything when it comes to stamina has been completely reworked. Anything you do in game, almost anything, requires stamina. If you take a bow out, it takes stamina. When you draw your weapons, it draws stamina. Just a single action. When you swing, when you aim with a bow, you lose stamina. Blocking also costs stamina, but when you hold a shield, for example, your stamina does not regenerate. Have in mind, all of those mechanics I'm explaining, they work for the NPCs, so you can abuse that to your own advantage. Every single strike will cost you stamina and quite a lot of it, so your actions are very limited, and when you reach to 0 stamina or the NPCs, you get a debuff that essentially makes you hit 50% slower on every action you do, and blocking becomes even more ineffective. Combat now, it's not about you smashing your way through your enemies, spamming power attacks or normal attacks in order to cheat your way through. You now have to figure out when to attack, find out your opponent's weaknesses, and also think before you engage in combat, because combat feels way more challenging now. So with Blade and Blood, essentially you learn how to manage your stamina and not to ignore it. For example, every time your enemies reach to 0 stamina, they get staggered from your attacks. And the same applies to you even when it comes to blocking. Have in mind there is a cooldown for the stagger mechanic, meaning that you cannot perma-stun someone like you are playing the Gothic games, but once every 5 seconds you can stagger enemies, and the same applies to you. It's not like you will go down to 0 stamina and you will not be able to move. Sneaking, for example, also consumes stamina. That's right, no longer you will be able to be a menace sneaking anywhere you go. That nerfs the very famous, or infamous should I say, stealth archer build. When you reach to 0 stamina while sneaking, your sneaking becomes way more less effective, down to 40%. You will have to be very careful and very slow with your movements, unless of course you become a master of stealth, which then you can have way more stamina to work around. That enhances, again, the early game and the mid game, so you can no longer be a killing machine when it comes to sneaking. Oh, and also, when you reach 0 stamina, if you try to hit someone, you deal half damage now. That kinda covers the whole stamina shenanigans. Again, there is way more things, I'm just covering the ones I find the more important. Let's speak about parrying, blocking, and more specifically attacks of opportunity. First of all, Blade and Blunt completely revamps how blocking works. Now from level 1, you are having a way higher effectiveness when it comes to blocking, close to 40%. That means every time you block, you almost take no damage. And of course it depends on what enemy you are facing, but blocking in general is way more better now, and you're getting half of the effectiveness when it comes to blocking, 25% to be more precise. When you combine that with the whole stamina stamina revamp makes it up for a very interesting blocking overhaul, which again makes it much more interesting the way you move around with your shield or the way you want to play around when it comes to blocking. Now Blade and Blunt adds this system called Attacks of Opportunity. It integrates them into Skyrim, striking enemies during specific events or actions. For example, an enemy drawing a bow or casting a spell gives you a 50% damage increase. That means every time you aim with a bow or you cast a spell, you move way more slower. I'm gonna cover that later on. When you're fighting mages, if you break their spell or if you hit someone when they draw their weapon or aim with a bow, you deal way more damage, which makes it a way more interesting way to interact if you don't want to block or if you want to be more strategic, play like a duelist and wait for the right moment to strike, versus be a mindless warrior, which is what I've done on my first playthrough, striking anyone down without any consequences at all. Those attack of opportunities will also cause extra stagger and you can visually see your enemies being thrown down. It's a super fun mechanic and it feels way more rewarding when it comes to that. Have in mind those attacks of opportunity work for your enemy. So anytime you're casting spells, you will be very careful how close or how far you get from your enemy. Same comes with a bow, so no longer you will be able to go in combat and spam arrows like nothing matters. You will get your ass beaten if you do that, especially with a bow. Speaking more of blocking, I've covered that how much more different stamina is on the first part. Every time you're going to block with either a weapon or a shield, your stamina stops to regenerate. The whole blocking part of the game I think feels way more interesting when it comes to Blade and Blunt. I don't know, you guys let me know what you think about it. I think it's super cool because again, so far we're using vanilla mechanics. Let's speak about parrying for a moment. There is also a parrying system introduced now into Skyrim. Anytime you take your weapon out, your one-handed weapon or your two-handed greatsword, even if it's a dagger, if you block 1 second before the attack you are about to receive, you get 100% buff on your block, which means if you time your blocks in between attacks of your enemies, you can actually parry with your weapon, which I think it's super cool because I always love the idea of being a duelist, someone who is using only one-handed weapon on his right hand, which now I can finally parry and block even much more effectively versus the vanilla game. This introduces so many more game styles you can try when it comes to approaching combat. So not only we're getting the attacks of opportunity, we're also getting a parrying system. Those two combined with the revamped blocking and stamina overhaul makes Skyrim's combat so much more interesting and fun to play. And have in mind, this is only with a single mode. We're not done yet because Blade and Blunt also adds an injury system. That's right, when you're in combat and when you're receiving damage, depending on what type of damage you receive, you're going to get injury. Those injuries get worse over time, and if you don't take care of them, after a few hours, they will give you even worse debuffs, decreasing your maximum health, your health regeneration, and way more. The reason why the mod introduces that is again to make the combat feel much more immersive, I've said the word guys, but also to give you an incentive to actually leave the dungeons, go to the closest town and inn, and find a bed in order to cure your wound. Every time you are going to sleep or use a cure disease potion, your injuries will go away, which is a fantastic way that again Blade and Blunt tries to let us use the world around us in order to heal our injury. Before using Blade and Blunt, I will only use the towns and cities just to vendor items or maybe get few quests, but now with Blade and Blunt, every single time I visit a town or a city, the first thing I do is to find an inn, hire a bed and go to sleep. Unless of course you're a Giga Chat and you own a house, which in most of my playthroughs I don't. Let's speak about infections. That's right, you remember in Skyrim when those stupid skivers or wild dogs attack you, you get a bunch of diseases, or when the bears cause the rabies debuff. Well, with Blade and Blunt we're getting our favorite more infections, which are going to stack on top of the injuries. enemies, and they will follow the same mentality, so you have to be very careful how you fight, when you fight, and how often you take care of yourself. Let's speak about the armor system, which has been completely revamped. That's right. Starting with the magic, all of the schools of magic and the resistances have been hard capped at 75%, as before you could get 100% resistance to any school. That means no matter how much magic resistance you are going to stack, you will always end up taking damage. On a similar fashion, all of the armors have been revamped, or should I say the armor rating system, which is doubled from vanilla, and it's capped at you having a total of 90% damage reduction. I think based on numbers alone it's close to 1000 armor. On the vanilla Skyrim, 500 armor was close to 80% damage reduction. So this nerfs the armor system, makes it much more difficult for you to get to the point where you take no damage, and again it feels way more balanced and better in my own opinion. I don't know what you guys think. I think it's a really good take. And speaking of which, all of the weapons are now rebalanced as well. All weapons, they got their unique range, attack speed, and damage value. Hammer weapons are much more slower, while great swords are slightly fast. Some weapons have longer range than others. This makes every weapon you find, or should I say the categories of weapons specifically, much more interesting to use. Closing this video, I am going to pinpoint a few extra stuff here, or should I say cover most of the minor things, which again guys, I'm gonna forget things because this mod adds so many things. First of all, regeneration rates have changed for both health, stamina, and magicka, and in combat they are almost half. Power attacks cost way more stamina, and you can only use them few times given how the whole stamina revamped is now. Passing with your shield or your weapon is way more effective, but also more expensive, unless you put many points in the blocking tree and become a master of blocking. Sprinting now costs more stamina dependent on the armor you wear. If you sprint while wearing light armor, it costs less stamina, while if you sprint while wearing full heavy armor, it costs double the stamina, giving much more depth in what type of armor you are actually wearing. Every time you draw your weapon in combat, it decreases your movement speed, and every time you block or aim, it decreases it even more, making again the combat much more challenging and realistic versus how it was in the vanilla Skyrim, where you could almost sprint while sneaking and blocking at the same time. Big targets again like dragons and giants cannot really be parried or thrown down, but they also stagger just a bit with double the cooldown when it comes to attacks of opportunity and parrying in general. Player is going to be immune to kill moves and will trigger kill moves only when the enemies are 50% or less of health. I'm gonna pause the difficulty changes when it comes to all of the configuration. The Novice, Apprentice, Adept, Expert, all the way to Legendary difficulty have been changed and revamped, so it makes for a much more interesting way of playing around and trying out to figure out which difficulty option you like. I am more of the option that there should be a single difficulty option in games, but again that's my humble opinion. There is also scaling now when it comes to Skyrim, which there was before, but now scaling has been added. In addition, every 10 levels you get, NPCs will unlock new spells, have higher gear, and essentially scale around with you. No longer when you find random caves will the enemies be the same level 1 bandits. Now those enemies will scale up and will make it much more interesting when you explore those low level areas. Have in mind, for all of those effects I've been yapping about for the past few minutes, they all use the vanilla mechanics. That means Blade and Blunt is 100% completely safe to use, it is not going to cause you any issues or crashes, and you can check the compatibility and incompatibility section when it comes to the mod page. I personally like to use Blade and Blunt with something like precision, which is what I'm showing you here. I'm not even using true directional movement. Currently I am playing a vanilla style playthrough. You can use any mods in addition that you want to make Skyrim's combat much more interesting, but if you ever wonder if there was a single mod that could improve everything when it comes to combat in Skyrim, Blade and Blunt is the mod for you. I'm very sure I forgot a bunch of things like resistances, enemy variety, and some other things, but honestly guys, I could speak about Blade and Plan for hours. I want to make this video short and just give this mod even more praise because it deserves all the praise in the world. If you want to download Blade and Plan, know that it works for every version of Skyrim. Anniversary Edition, Special Edition, Microwave Edition, all versions it covers it. That being said, that was Blade and Plan. It's crazy how we can get so many things with the usage of a single mod. Thank you for watching. If you love this video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for supporting and watching those videos, and also give me some feedback guys so I can actually improve those videos. That being said, that was me Kavou, and until next time, stay safe and happy modding.